Welcome everyone, this is Kerjims channel. Now we are back to our new episodes of two similarity champions and comparison featured by Wild League, League of Legends versus the Mobile Legend Bang Bang. But before that, please like and subscribe to my channel and don't forget to click the bell icon to be notified to our new next episode video. Let's do this!
These ape-like creatures are wise, cautious people. They built their society away from the landwalkers, preferably on top of the tallest trees in Ionia. The Shimon see life as an evolutionary climb to wisdom, and thus, upon death, the Shimon believe they become stones, returning to the soil to begin the climb of life again. Even from an early age, Kong had very little in common with his fellow Shimon. Impulsive, clever, and fun-loving, Kong was a constant thorn in the village's side. When war came to Ionia, Kong was engaged by the sounds and colors of the battles below. They awoke something true and undeniable within him. Kong left his tribe to prepare for something he knew to be his destiny. Armed with only instincts and with no training under his belt, Kong wandered Ionia in search of challengers to learn the art of combat. Though Kong often earned bruises and broken teeth for his trouble, with each fight he was carving himself into the warrior he felt he was meant to become. In his travels, Kong ran across a goggle-wearing man meditating in a glade. Kong challenged him to a fight. The man stood up and knocked Kong to the ground in a single motion before returning to his meditation. Kong had challenged many opponents, but he had never experienced anything like this. For weeks, Kong came back to the glade every day and attempted to defeat the warrior. Though he was stronger and faster than the goggled man, Kong was outmaneuvered at every turn. Eventually, Kong decided to try something he had never attempted in his many years of life: humility. He kneeled before the man and humbly asked for training. Without missing a beat, the swordsman asked a question of Kong. Why do you fight? Kong realized he had never thought about that before. He could have stayed in his peaceful society, but something inside him demanded otherwise. Kong asked the same question of the man, who only replied that he did not fight anymore. Kong spent the next several days sitting in the glade with the warrior, pondering the question. The man saw Kong's change of heart and quiet determination. He introduced himself as Master Yi, and agreed to train Kong in the virtues of discipline, patience, and combat, which Yi called Wushu. Kong's techniques and precision improved with each lesson, as Yi turned Kong's recklessness and impulsiveness into a lethally swift and surprising fighting style. The two grew to respect each other over the course of this training. Yet Kong sensed deep sadness in Yi that even Kong's most hilarious pranks couldn't lighten. More than that, he still hadn't found an answer to Yi's question. Maybe if he had known what Yi had once fought for, he could answer the question for himself. So Kong made Yi a proposition. The two would engage in a friendly spar. If Kong won, Yi would have to tell him what he had fought for. If Yi won, Kong wouldn't speak for an entire year. Yi eagerly accepted. Kong lured Yi from the glade into a field of smoke poppies, and each time Yi attempted one of his swift attacks, Kong would disappear into the haze released by the poppies. In confusion, Yi struck at what he believed to be Kong, but instead was a straw doll Kong had created in his own image and planted in the fields as a decoy. Kong seized this opportunity and felled Yi in a single blow. Yi smiled at Kong's cleverness, but the smile disappeared however, as he explained why he had given up the sword. Yi was once an integral part of Ionia's defense against Noxus during the invasion. Yi and his disciples had been so effective in meeting the Noxians in combat that the invaders eventually turned to chemical warfare. Yi blamed himself for the hundreds of lives lost in their Zonite scientist chem bombs. No longer able to answer why he fought, he banished himself to the glade to meditate upon the question. Kong came from people who choose to stay out of the world's fights, but all that did was leave those who might be less equipped to face these threats alone. Kong admired that, whatever the outcome, Yi had fought to protect others. Kong realized he wished to do the same. Through Kong's eyes, Yi saw that he had been running away from the truth. He was a warrior, and his people needed his help. Being thankful, Yi granted Kong an enchanted staff, crafted by the legendary blacksmith Dora, and a new honorific reserved only for the brightest students of Wushu. From that day forward, Kong was known as Wukong. Yi and Wukong walked out of Ionia's wilderness, intent on finding a new cause to fight for, together. Wukong kept improving with each encounter they had faced on their travels. Even to this day, he is still improving. Fast and dumb, or slow and smart. That's what Yi always asked him. Well, Wukong says ask, but it's not really a question. Not up for discussion, not really. You can be impulsive and quick and improvisational and have fun. Or you can do things Yi's way, the right way. Slow, patient, strategic, with a gruff, determined expression on his face, like he stepped in crap. Maybe because he did. Maybe because Wukong shoved some inside his boot, thinking he would find it funny. He didn't. To Wukong, the really irritating thing was that Yi was usually right. Through the years they have trained together, Wukong had beaten him in combat around 12 times, versus the hundreds of times Yi had whooped him. And every single time, he ate a mouthful of dirt, and he knew it was because he had gotten impatient. Took a swing he wasn't sure would land, lunged for an opening that ended up being a trap. Wukong is good, really good. He, humorless as he is, just happens to be one of the best warriors he had ever met. It's not like the guy is slow either. He's fast, faster than anyone he had ever seen. As in, as Wukong describes, he unsheathes his blade, then there is a blur, then 3 guys are bleeding on the ground. That fast. So when he tells Wukong to choose slow and smart over fast and dumb, he tries to listen most of the time. Keyword being tries, and most of the time. They were wandering through a forest of man-high mushrooms when they heard him shouting. In addition to cutting off the punchline of an incredible joke Wukong had been telling, Yi made him dive into the thick of a bush to avoid detection. There were 6 of them, 5 bandits and a rope-bound captive, an elderly farmer with anxious eyes. Wukong felt this situation called for a liberal application of hitting people in the head with his staff, but Yi held him back. He put a finger on his lips, then pointed at his eyes. Observe, strategize, fast and dumb or slow and smart. Wukong sighed and looked over the group with a despairing eye. Raggedy clothes hung off their hunched backs, taut with stress. They seemed to take far better care of their blades than themselves. Their eyes scanned their surroundings as they marched, on the lookout for any potential ambush. One shoved a gag into the old farmer's mouth, presumably to stop the shouting they had just heard. The old farmer collapsed to the ground. The tumble was intentional. Anyone could tell that. His captors certainly did. The leader stopped and faced the old man. "Well, that there's it," he said. "You're old, my friend, but you're not that old. Falling over every few hundred steps to stall for time. Give yourself a second to think about how you're gonna get out of this. That's an old trick, older than you." He squatted to the farmer's level. "You don't really have a chest full of precious stones at home, do you?" The old man stared at the bandit, terror slowly replacing itself with resignation. He shook his head. "That's a shame," the bandit said with a smile on his face. The kind of smile that usually leads to somebody pulling out a dagger. Wukong whispered to Yi. Yi shook his head as hard as he could without rattling his goggles. Wukong didn't have to ask why. He likely wanted one of them to sneak around and attack from the other side of the path, trapping them in a pinch, or something equally cunning and time-consuming. Slow and smart. To Wukong, Yi was a big problem. Apart from not finding him funny, and the fact that his goggles made him look like a man-sized bug, is that he spent the last handful of years sitting alone in a field of flowers. His patience was infinite. He thinks everything can be thought through, planned for. Still, Yi had said to go slow, so they would try it his way. Wukong nodded at him. Then he stared at the path behind the sun. His sign for, you get behind them, I'll attack on your signal. Yi circled back through the brush. He darted to the other side of the trail, too quick to notice even if they had been looking in his direction. Classic ambush setup. He would get their attention, and while their backs are turned, Wukong would hit them from his side. That's when the lead bandit pulled out a blade out of his right pocket. A small little thing, not good for much more than peeling fruit, or slicing the throat of a tired old farmer. Wukong couldn't see Yi in the brush on the other side of the road, but he knew Yi couldn't see the blade. He didn't know what was about to happen. They were about to kill the old man, no matter how safe Yi wanted to play it. They had no time to go slow. Thankfully, Wukong had a secret weapon up his sleeve. In his words, he is really good at fighting. The leader grabbed the old man's skull and put a knife to his throat. Wukong leapt out of the brush, staff held high, and smacked the blade out of his hand. Then he got to his favorite part. Whenever Wukong gets a block on somebody, he usually gets about 2 to 3 seconds of window as they try to make sense of him. Most people have never seen a Vastayan, much less a Shimon. They stood there slack-jawed, which usually gave him a chance to hit them before they realized what was going on. Wukong drove his knee into the lead bandit's chin, and his teeth clicked together so hard even he winced at the sound. "Stay where you are, Yi," he shouted into the brush where he waited, unseen. "I got this." That's when a knife hit him in the shoulder. One of the bandits had been wearing a belt of throwing daggers across his chest. He tried not to imagine Yi smirking to himself. "Still got this, do you?" Yi yelled from the brush, likely staying out of the fight just long enough for Wukong to get his teeth kicked in, so he could leap in, save him, and shout that he told him to go slow. "Completely," Wukong shouted as he tossed a handful of smoke poppies to the ground. He always kept a few on him. They are useful in combat, even more useful for irritating Yi when he's bored. Then Wukong beat the hell out of the rest of them. At first, Wukong didn't want to trouble us with the details. Well, but then he did anyway because he enjoyed it. He held his staff out and twirled around, aiming high so as to avoid the prone old man. His arms shuddered with every impact of wood against skull. He dodged blows, parried strikes, and only got punched in the face like twice.